Penny Black and Jill Foster here for your next PB&J card class. And today I'm using a T for Transparent set Frosty Fun, also the Stencil Design Snow Dance, and the Sentiment from the T for Transparent set Joy Filled to create the card that you see here. And those fun snowflakes are by Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L, and I'll be showing how to create those as well. So to begin, I'm going to ink my stamp using Ranger Archival ink in the color of Jet Black, and I'm stamping this onto Canson 140-pound watercolor paper. And I'm going to be using a variety of different mediums to color in this image. So basically I've picked some of my favorites, either color or application, and I'm using those to color it in. So I want to make sure this is completely dry before I add my next color, and I'm going to be using Copic markers and Shinhan Art Touch Twin markers to do the skin tones. And I've just picked this because this is my favorite skin tone colors that I have, and so I thought instead of trying to come up with a new one with watercolors, I would just use the ones I'm comfortable with. So I've colored those in, I've added the blush, and then I'm also adding, blending that using the skin tone color. I've listed the exact colors at the end of the video. You do want to be careful if you use alcohol ink markers with the archival ink. You just don't want to go over the black, and to avoid that you could stamp and emboss your image if you would like. So next, I really like the red that I can create. It's really vibrant by using the Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus watercolors, and I've mixed the rose red with the orange to create a nice, bright, vibrant red. And so I'm just going to use this to color in her dress. And I'm not looking to do a lot of shading right now. I just want to get this nice, vibrant color down. And then later I'll go back in and add the shading using a distress marker. So you can really color and mix and match your mediums however you like, picking colors or different types of mediums depending on what you're comfortable with. There's no right or wrong way to do it. So I painted in her dress and also her bows, and now I'm going to go in and color her hair. So I did want this to have a watercolor look, so I'm going to use distress markers on her hair, and this is the color of, let's see, Vintage Photo. So I'm coloring that in, leaving some white. That's where I'll add the water and do the blending. Those will be my lighter areas. What I love about these Mimi stamps and images is that they're very simple, and so you don't have to get real intricate or technical with your shading like on the hair. A little bit of areas of light and dark really are all that it needs. So I'm just adding water here to blend. I start by adding the water in the white areas and then move into the darker areas and let the water kind of wick that out and blend it. If you want to lighten any areas, you can add additional water. And then while it's still wet, if you do have any areas where you've got too much, you can add in a little extra water to lift it. Or I'm even just going to grab a very pretty dry baby wipe actually and just kind of wick some of that up because it went down onto her face a little too much. And then I can just go back and add a little bit. So I colored on my acrylic block, and then I just added a light layer of that on top just to darken it up. Now I made sure that was dry before going to my next color, and so I'm using Spiced Marmalade just to color in the polka dots on her dress and her bow. And here I'm using the marker just because it was easy. It had a fine tip and I could get right into the detailed areas. Same here with the shading on her dress. This is a Fired Brick distress marker, and I used the marker here because it was very easy to get that darker color right where I wanted it. And then I can go in with a small brush and blend that. And I'll do the same, just touching a little bit on those polka dots so that they also have that watercolor look, and blending the Fired Brick color up on her bow. So now I want to make sure that was dry so that I didn't reactivate the ink. It makes it a little bit easier so you don't reactivate the ink and have it bleed into a color you don't want it to be, like the red onto these white areas. So to the areas that are going to remain white, I like to add a little shading. It just gives it more of a finished look, but they still remain looking white. So I'm using Weathered Wood Distress Marker, and I'm just coloring that right onto the image. And then I will go back with just clean water and blend that a little bit. You can also use like a light, very light blue or pale blue on areas that remain white as well, just to give them more of a finished look. So now I'm ready to do the background. I wanted this to have a watercolor background, so I'm coloring around the image using a peeled paint distress marker. And you really could do any color, or you could leave it white. I just really like the way it looks with that watercolor background. I think it gives it just a finished effect as well. So I wanted it to be darkest around the image of the girl, but then I also wanted to have a little bit darker area up in this top right hand corner to balance things out. So I'm just scribbling with the marker just to get the pigment down up on that corner. Now I'm going to use a brush with just clean water. I'm going to start by applying the water in the white area, then work up into the area that I colored, and you can see the water just wicks away and bleeds out on its own. And that gives it that natural watercolor look. And I'll continue to do this all the way around Mimi, and then I'll also do that with that top corner as well. And you can see how that just starts to flow and blend down into the other area. And you can keep adding water until you're satisfied with the look. And then I'll go ahead and dry that, or you could let it air dry, depending on your patience level. I also wanted to give her some ground, even though she's out in the snow. I wanted to give her a little ground here, so that's that weathered wood distress marker. And again, I'm applying the water to the white area and then working my way up to the area that I colored and letting it bleed down on its own. Now I'm going to take this stencil Snow Dance. I'm going to lay it over my background. And what's nice is I can still see where Mimi is, so I don't put any ink over the top of her. And I'm using Ranger Archival ink in the color of Leaf Green, and I'm using a ink blending tool with a foam pad. And I'm just putting that through the stencil to create a snowy background. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I love these little small sentiments you can put right up next to the image. I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp this. I know I'm done adding any water to the background, so I don't have to worry about that blending or bleeding. Now these are 3D foam snowflakes by Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L. So I went ahead and I just peeled those off and I put them onto my background. I used 3. And then I'm putting some Martha Stewart glitter on top. Now this is a real thick glitter and I wanted that effect, but if you wanted to really see the detail of those snowflakes, if you used a really fine glitter, you would be able to see that as well. So this is just a little bit chunkier look. And then I'm going to use, added some pearls to the snowflakes, and now I'm using the Crafty foam tape on the back of my watercolored piece. And what's really nice about this is because I added a lot of water to that background, it was curling up a little bit, but with this foam tape and the large pieces I was able to cut, when I put that on my note card, it won't be curling any longer. So there's a look at those fun snowflakes in the background and a look at the finished card. Thank you so much for watching. For additional details and information, be sure to visit the Penny Black website, www.pennyblackink.com, and here's a list of all the supplies used in creating this card.